We're taking a look at how to create assignment 3 with an important feature called the append function, which is what's going to help us create our list. And so we have to explain what that's all about. So over here, so sometimes when you create a list, I could say, okay, here's a list. And it's going to equal, and then you start putting things in that list, right? Like here I am just creating a list of objects, whatever, for some reason I need that, whatever. But sometimes you want to add things to the list during your program. So let's say you're creating a game and you want more bad guys to spawn because you're on level 2 and the first level only had 5 bad guys, but now you want 6 bad guys. And so, did you create them beforehand and kind of store him and save him away? Or you could, if you had a list of the bad guys, you could just append one more onto the end of the list. Just add something to the list. So sometimes you need to create more things in your list as you go. In some programming languages, the way that you do that is you would say, hey, I'm about to create a list. So however you would do that, and you might say that there's going to be like 99 things in that list, so it knows to save room in its memory for 99 things. But in Python, we don't have to tell it how many things we are going to have. We just have to say, yeah, it's time to add something more to that list, which means you could theoretically just keep adding and adding and adding. I don't know what the limit is, the number of things in a list. So right here, what do I have? This is a list. It's a list because it has these brackets. So as soon as I use these brackets, I am referring to a list. But what's in my list? Absolutely nothing. So I'm starting with an empty list. I could print this list, and if I was to run it, I would just get the brackets because the brackets are what's in this list right now. It's empty. And so, it wouldn't be very interesting to say, hey, I want to go through this whole list and like print every object on the list because there's no objects in the list, right? So instead, what you want to do is you want to create, like, you can add something to the list. So I'll just show you how to do that with one idea. What it is you take the name of the list and you say dot append, and you say what do you want to put into that list. So let's just say I want to put the number 7 on that list. So now when I run it, the number 7, see, it was blank, but now there's the number 7 in it. And so if I could, I could rando.append something else in this list, and it would be, now if I printed it, I'd get a 7 and then a 4. The append always adds to the end of it, so I can't like stick something in the middle of the list or at the beginning of the list. You can, but there's other ways to do that. And so that's basically it. But there's an easier way to do that than just to keep on appending and appending and appending, and that is you could make another loop, right? So let's just say I want to add 5 things in my list. So I'd go back to my old range command when I make a for loop, and I could say I want to run a for loop 5 times. Now remember, I don't need to say start at 1, go to 5, count by ones. I just can say, hey, I want a loop that runs 5 times. I'm not worried about what it equals or anything. I just need to know that it runs 5 times. And so I can do rando append, and now I could like put in the number 7, and it would put it in there 7 times, right? So now when I go to print rando, now it's in there 5 times because I told it to go through and do it 5 times. So I appended it 5 times. So imagine, you could say, you could do all sorts of things here. You could put an input, right? So value equals an integer, enter a number, and now the user could enter a number and you could append that number into the list. So every time you ask the user what's the next number in the list, what's the next number in the list, and the user can create that. You could also do something similar, but instead of asking the user to do something, you could create something, right? So I've imported my random. So let's just say, hey, I know I want to make a random integer between 1 and 10, and I want to put it in here, and it's going to put it in there 5 times. So it's going to make a value, and then it's going to append that value into the list. And there we go. It picked a lot of 2s for some reason. The next time I run this, because it's random, I should get a completely different result. See, there we go. No 2s at all. Yay. And so you can do things like that. And the way that this works is that it uses the append to keep on adding more and more to the list. Then what you can do, because you've created a loop, is that you can do this a ridiculous number of times and create really big things. Because now, and hey, I want a number between 110 or 1 million or whatever. Because once it's in a loop, it only takes you changing these few numbers here, and then you suddenly have, a wide variety of things that you can do with it, which is kind of cool.